All right, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining our Take30 for BI, Take30 with BI Expert. Today, we're going to be focused on data modules versus framework manager. Which one's right for you? So the agenda is a comparison of the features, so a deeper dive into what the key features are of data modules and any gaps that they have today. Also, some usage guidelines. Give you our perspective on data modeling, and then Glenn's going to give a demo as well, and then we'll open it up for Q&A. So at this point, I want to I'll light up a poll, just a question about future topics you'd like to, future Cognos topics you'd like us to cover in future sessions. All right, so thank you for that. Ahead, just calendar of events. So today we're focused on data modules versus framework manager. Next week, we're going to be covering row-level security in Power BI. The week after that, we're going to focus on Cognos Analytics data sets. And we're going to be coming out with another set of 6 sessions in, I think, the next week or 2. Just a reminder, right, this is the reason we get out of bed in the morning. You know, we are here to help our clients use data to make better decisions about their business. We see data and analytics as being critical for decision-making in any organization, especially now during these times. When deploying or enhancing analytic capabilities, we at Ironside see these 6 steps at the center of the wheel as being critical to any successful implement. This model is meant to outline how we Ironside can assist your organization with any of these steps, no matter where you are in the journey. And so myself, I'm Scott Masage. I'm the practice director for BI here at Ironside. And let me turn it over to Glenn.
Hey everyone, my name is Glenn Lightfoot. I'm a senior consultant at Ironside. I've been here a couple of years, since 2017. I spent about 8 years with IBM before that. Before that, it was Cognos, part of the acquisition of Cognos, actually. We also have Bob O'Donnell, and I'll turn it over to him for an intro.
Yeah, good morning, thanks. I've been with Ironside about 2.5 years. Before that, I spent a lot of time with IBM, and before that with Cognos in a pre-sales role.
All right, so jumping into the first slide, I've put together kind of a matrix of capabilities across data modeling tools, and in this case, data modules and FM. So just taking a look at the capabilities, and we can go down the list. I don't want to do each one of these one by one, but what I wanted to do was illustrate that for the most part, the punch list of capabilities that everybody's really looking for are available across both framework as well as data modules. At the bottom, you see the list of capabilities that aren't available in data modules is small and it's shrinking. So multi-language support, object level security, and parameter maps. And I know that object level security is on the roadmap. I believe the others are some implementation. The others are in the works as well. So what we want to do today was kind of jump into some of the data module features that we think are kind of key. If this is going to be, data modules are going to be rolled out at, say the enterprise at the IT level, as well as kind of a line of business or department level. So data modules can be based on data servers, packages, uploaded files, data sets, and even other data modules. So data servers are basically data sources within Cognos Analytics, JDBC based, a few other differences as well. You can secure your data down to the row level through users, groups, and roles, and we'll show this a little bit later on. For those of you who are FM modelers, and you have probably run into the situation where you are conforming 2 facts at different levels across a common dimension or common dimensions, and you end up, and I know some people on the funnel are going to cringe, but you end up having to deal with determinants in order to resolve this framework. That same type of functionality is available here, and I'll demonstrate that here in a few minutes. We've also got relative time support within data modules that basically will allow you to bucket time and do period over period type comparison, current year, prior year, that sort of thing. And we'll take a look at that as well. So the things that are not supported, and I did call this out earlier: multi-language support, parameter mapping, object level security. And again, those are things that are in some way on the radar or on the roadmap. And there are ways to address some of these, but not completely. So just keep that in mind. Those are going to be some of the limiting factors. If you need these, can't do without them. A little bit of a side by side. FM is IT centric. You definitely wouldn't want to turn this over to to end users, it would end up being a mess, and it just wouldn't end well. Data modules is line of business centric, but that's not to say that it's not familiar. So, you know, as data modeler, as a framework manager, data modeler, I got in here, and I've done this in several different phases as the product has been released. And as you know, this last time around, what I'm realizing, you know, is that a lot of the features that I have become familiar with in framework, they're there in some way. I mean, you know, it's not meant to be a one-to-one mapping of features, but it's pretty powerful. And the more you work with it, the more you find out that there's a lot of power in it. You know, FM is mature. It's been around for longer than I've been working with Cognos, barely, a little bit. So it's kind of that classic feel of a data modeling tool, whereas the data modules offer that kind of a, you know, new experience. It's more on par with some of the competitors out there, and it's actually quite intuitive once you start digging into it. FM is supported, but it's not being actively enhanced by IBM, so they're putting all of their efforts into, you know, enhancing data modules and making it robust. And you can see, you know, you can see if you follow it over the last 2 or 3 releases, you can see that the capabilities have increased, and it's a cleaner tool. FM, as we know, is a client install. So, you know, whether you use RDP to get to a server that you have it installed on, or whether you have it installed on multiple client locations, it is a client install, whereas data modules are web-based. No need to worry about that. Several things to consider when you're trying to evaluate a new project and whether you want to go with framework or data modules. You know, the personas, who's using it, how are they using it? Yeah, you know, who's using the data as well, and how are they using that data? You know, are you heavily consumer based, or do you have a lot of business analysts and explorers? You know, that's going to factor in. Are there any technical limitations? Meaning, do you have to have that multi-language support? Do you really leverage parameter maps heavily? What I found is my customers that use parameter maps use them a lot, and those that don't, they sometimes dabble, but you know, so you have to evaluate that. You have to evaluate that for sure. Do you have a need to enable businesses, line of business, you know, department level self-service, where, you know, where you say you have an analyst supporting a group of users, and that analyst is responsible for preparing data and visualizations and charts and things. You know, another thing is kind of a cultural aspect of this, right? So this is the way we've always done it, so this is the way we're going to do it. You know, there are people that are going to be hesitant to it. I'll be honest, I've been hesitant at times, but it's actually a pretty cool tool, and it's quite capable. So skill set. And Bob pointed out something, you know, just because you can doesn't mean you should, but the tool is intuitive. So from an end user and business analyst perspective, I think the learning curve is fairly short, and I think you can get someone up to speed and they can understand it fairly quickly, but it's do they understand their data, you know, and if they do, then I think you can get someone ramped up fairly quickly. And at the same time, if you're an FM modeler, this is going to be quite intuitive, and as you get into it, you'll find that some things are actually easier. So if you don't have those technical gaps and there's nothing standing in your way, then, you know, I think it's safe to say you can definitely use data modules. And but again, it's the consulting answer, it depends. So just kind of our take on data modeling and data modules in general. IBM is committed and focused on enhancing data modules, and you can see it over the past few releases. You can see the capabilities have been rolled out, or, you know, even the interface has been improved. So, you know, they're definitely committed to making data modules robust and to making, you know, the entire Cognos analytics modeling experience a lot more enjoyable and productive. So Framework Manager represents more than 16 years of maturity, and it's not going anywhere. We've got customers that have, you know, years of time invested into building models and publishing packages, so they're not going anywhere. And the great news is we can leverage all of them with data modules if you choose to go that route. You know, just to reiterate, a lot of the roadblocks using data modules have been removed, or they're, you know, currently in the process of either being removed or some some other approach going, being implemented to address them. So Jason Tavaleros from IBM, one of the product managers, this is a quote I think a lot of people have probably seen: use data modules unless you can't. And what I'll say to that is, a year ago, that was, and this statement was made more than a year, but a year and a half ago, it wasn't as easy, but it's getting a lot easier to say, well, yeah, that makes sense. If you can't use them, it should be because of technical requirements that you need to implement if you just can't do it with data modules. So we're going to do a demo. I'm not building a data module. I kind of staged one for us so that we can walk through a couple of examples of things that we discussed here in the presentation. So with that, I'm going to jump right in.
Yeah, so Glenn, before you jump in that, I just want to show the poll results. I'll just show those for a couple seconds. So it seems like dashboards and stories is certainly a popular request, as well as a deeper dive into data modules, followed by upgrades. So thanks all for taking the poll, and let me turn it back to Glenn. Go for it.
Thanks, Scott. Okay, so what I've done here is I've staged a data module that is actually based on a data server, and that is, again, it's a data source in Cognos Analytics, so it is pointing directly at, and most of you guys probably recognize cells. And what I did is I brought in several tables, and if we want to kind of think the FM modeling paradigm, these would be the database layer that I brought in all of these tables over here. One of the things I would like to see, and it's just a petty thing at this point, with Framework, when we had things in a folder, they would be in a folder over here. I think that'd be nice. But essentially what I've done is I've modeled a product dimension on product line type, product, and product name group. I modeled an order fact on order header, order details, and a sales target fact on sales target and country. And so a couple of things we were talking about earlier are security. So how would we implement security? And in this case, what I want to do is I want to demonstrate securing our sales target fact. So what I want is our sales folks in North America to only see their targets in North America. I don't necessarily want them to see anything outside of that. And, so what I want to do is I want to implement security at the group level to secure this, and I'm going to do it by country here. So to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back over to my data source itself. I'm going to go down to country, click on the ellipses, and set data security. All right. At this point, I'm going to go over here and add a security definition, and I'm going to go into my authentication provider, and I'm going to find, and in this case, I'm going to do this very simplified. I'm going to just add myself to a group and then demonstrate what the result of that is. Call it NA security. And so I'm securing on country and country code EN, then I'm going to add a filter. And so in North America, I only want to be able to see, in this case, I'm going to see Canada, Mexico, and the United States. All right, so that's been added. I could remove it here. I could add additional filters. I could go back and add more people to this. And just to demonstrate, typically a real world scenario, we would probably have groups where we added people so that we wouldn't have to go in and modify these groups each time. But just for this simplicity's sake, I'm going to go ahead and just add myself. All right, and with that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to just try it out and kind of demonstrate what happened here, what we're seeing here. I'm going to switch to page preview because I kind of like to see that update. I'm going to go into our time dimension, and I want to add my current year. Go ahead and filter it so that I'm looking at just 2013. I'm going to add my product line, add my product type. All right. And then I'm going to add my sales target and my country here. And in this report, what we can do is just page down, and everyone knows those sales. There's more data in it than just U.S., Mexico, and Canada. So the security that I applied did in fact work, and it's pretty much that simple to apply security. All right, I'm going to go ahead and leave this open because I want to compare it later. If there are some other modeling issues in here that we need to address, and the scenario I talked about just a few minutes ago, where we have a fact at one level of granularity and a fact at another level. So if I look at order fact, it's joined to product dim on product number. If I look at the sales target fact, it's joined to product type. So obviously, if we bring both of these in, conformed across product dim into a report, we're going to have some issues. So to address that, what we're going to do is we're going to go over here to the product dim itself, and we're going to specify column dependencies. And for those of you who have done a lot of FM modeling, this is determinants, basically. This is how determinants are implemented. So what I know is that my product dim is at the product number, product line, and product type level. So product line being the highest level, followed by product type. So I can click here and drag, and I associate those. So I can take product type and then tell it that we have this relationship between line, type, and product. Another cool thing is we have validation that's happening real time. I think it's every few seconds or so, and we can turn that on or off if we want. But you know, unlike some other warnings and errors in Cognos, this is very you know, informational. So for those who have built determinants, what you'll realize is that we actually have some unclassified columns. So in this case, they're not part of a dependency group. Each of these is a dependency group. So what I'm going to do here is I know what I need to do. I'm going to add my product line EN under product line code, product type EN under product type code, and then I know that product name and product language are both at the product level. I'll add those, and that should address the situation we're talking about earlier, where we have facts at different levels. And to do that, or to demonstrate that, I'm going to go ahead and build another quick report. Jump into page preview mode, and let's go ahead and our time dim, and we'll take current year. And we're going to filter and include just 2013. I'm going to add my product line. Product type. I'm going to add my total sales. And then I want to be able to compare it to my target. And so if I'm looking at cooking gear and camping for 2013, and I can go ahead and I can add country EN here. So if I'm looking at Canada, cooking gear 2013, my target is 15 million. And of course, I can format these very easily. Now looking at the previous one, I had 151 million. So we know we had some roll-up issues and some double counting going on. So it looks like our quote-unquote determinants here did exactly what we expected them to do. So you know, and this is actually, in my opinion, it's a lot less confusing than it was in Framework. So what we'll do now is we're going to move on and demonstrate one more thing at this point. Going back to the relationships, let me jump back over to my orders fact, and I'm going to expand order date. And this kind of has a look and feel like if we're working with an OLAP source, just an FYI. That's where I'm seeing the numbers here. But what I'd like to do is I'd like to bucket all these into relative time. And to do that, I'm going to add a new data source. And this time the data source is going to be a calendar, and this is all from the sample content that ships with Cognos. And I'm going to implement this fiscal calendar, excuse me. And I think it's important to note that this is actually behind the scenes. This is a data set. So we're bringing a database model, and we're bringing a data set into that. Now, okay, so what we want to do at this point is on order date, we're going to go to properties. I could have clicked that over here and brought up properties. It represents time, it's a date, and we want to add our fiscal calendar as a lookup reference. So when I click this, note that what happens over in our metadata tree. So now we've implemented essentially buckets for relative time. So we can do any kind of prior year, year-over-year comparison, month-over-month, period-over-period type comparison. You know, this could be a data set, it could be a table. So I've worked with a lot of customers who have a pretty robust date format that implements all of these buckets and then updates nightly to ensure that it's up to date. So with that, this is pretty much what I wanted to show everyone. And Scott, let's go ahead and we'll open it back up for questions now.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Glenn. So we have a couple of questions here. So let me address the first one. So the first one is essentially what licensing is required for users to access the data module functionality. So so the answer to that is analytics user, which is one of the so if you will, the licenses are analytics viewer, which is the new name for the information distribution license, and then the next license up is the analytics user. That's all you need to be able to use data modules. Okay. Next question. Can you offer some examples of use cases supporting data modules?
Using data modules right now, I think is the decision to make unless there's a technical or process or business reason why you wouldn't. And Glenn went over a few of them. So if you have to do something with parameter maps, which you can probably circumvent with an uploaded file, data set, something like that. If there's object level security, if you're talking about multilingual or multi-currency at the column level, those capabilities aren't there yet. I think anything else, any new development, I would go with a data module. We've talked about this a little bit as far as the capabilities are concerned, are pretty much all there, and the tool is pretty easy to learn. So if you're a data modeler, I think you'll be comfortable in both, and I think it sets you up nicely for future releases of Cognos.
Okay, thanks, Bob. So another question. What are some typical approaches for rolling out data modules to our users?
Okay, I'll take that one. So I think a good example is having just say an IT managed data modules, and they're made available to your line of business users who have read-only access. So they're managed by IT, but you have line of business level analysts that are consuming those, building reports, dashboards for their users. You may have some hardcore data explorers. We've got a friend who's an engineer and he's kind of a data rat. He just likes to dig into anything. He might be a good case for someone that we would roll out and let them, build their own models. So another good example would be, we can allow line of business users to develop their own data modules to support their people and their organization. And if we take it a step further, think about it this way: we can let business users, analysts develop data modules. They can do all the work, burn them in, make sure they're right, get them to where they want them, and then at some point they can petition IT and say, we'd like to have this managed by IT. At that point, IT takes over. They'll vet the data. They'll make sure that they're pulling the data from the right source, and they'll optimize it where possible or where needed, and then they'll roll that out, and from that point it becomes IT managed. So there is kind of that paradigm where it's a it's a team effort, right? IT's, some of the work's alleviated from IT because they don't have to do all of the work in developing it and testing it themselves. The business is doing it, and then at the point where it makes sense, IT takes over.
Right, and I'll actually add on to that, right? So that and that last example that Glenn gave is actually in alignment with What we have proposed is a modern analytics operating model where, again, the people who know the most about the data are the ones exploring it and trying to determine if it has value. Not only does that, alleviate the bottlenecking that can sometimes happen around IT organizations that pertains to Cognos, but it's also going to accelerate time to value, right? So I mean that is a solid approach to rolling this stuff out. Okay, another question. I've tried to use data modules in the past, but ran into performance issues when compared to FM. Do data modules build and process queries differently?
That's a great question. It's going to depend on what you're using them for. So, and that sounds like I'm avoiding the question, but so Framework Manager, the query engine and the package are separate. So if I have a Framework Manager model a package, and I build a report off of it, the query engine is coming from the reporting environment. If I'm building a dashboard or a story or an exploration, that query engine is the newer version of that query engine. So they're separate. The idea behind this now, though, is whether it's a data module or it's a Framework Manager package, and they have gotten a lot better as far as the crafting of the SQL and everything behind that since some of the earlier versions. The idea is that is just the rules that the query engine is going to use to write the query to get the data back for you for the object that you're trying to populate, if that makes sense. So it's going to depend on what you're using as far as how the query is going to be crafted. And to answer the question as far as performance is concerned, I think they've gotten to the point now where data modules are on par, if not sometimes better, than Framework Manager for packages and performance.
And one thing that we can add to that is that if it comes down to it, build a data set and you can optimize the data that you're reporting against and, kind of get around that, circumvent any performance issues. So kind of the idea behind building a cube. It's not a cube, but performance-wise, that is an approach that a lot of people use to get over that hump.
All right, and conveniently, we're going to be talking in one of these sessions about data sets in 2 weeks. So, okay, so we have reached the end of our 30 minutes together. So definitely appreciate you all joining us, and look forward to having you join us in future sessions. And certainly, if you have topics that you wish us to cover, just reach out to send us an email at here2help@ironsidegroup.com, and we'll get it added to the agenda. So again, thank you very much for taking the time with us, and have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.